The great crystal hall on Valor Prime shone with soft blue light. Tall pillars of clear stone rose high above the floor. Hundreds of alien beings sat in curved seats that floated a little above the ground. They came from many worlds. Some had scales, some had feathers, some had many arms or glowing skin. All of them belonged to the Galactic Concord. This was the place where the strongest species in the galaxy made their rules and shared their power. Today the hall felt different. Everyone was quiet. At the center stood one very old being. His name was Vraxthul. He was the last of his kind. His people had been among the first to travel between the stars. Now only he remained. His tall body gave off a faint green glow that pulsed slowly, like a dying heartbeat. Long robes of silver cloth hung from his thin frame. His large black eyes looked tired, but sharp. He raised one long hand. The room became completely silent. "I come to speak one last time," he said. His voice came from small speakers on his chest, because his real throat could no longer make sound. "After today, my light will fade. I will join my people in the long sleep. But before I go, I must tell you something important. Something you have chosen to forget." Many delegates leaned forward. Some looked curious. Others looked bored. They had heard old stories from elders before. Most of those stories were just legends now. Vraxthul turned slowly. His glowing eyes moved across the crowd. "Many cycles ago," he began, "when this Concord was still young, new voices came to us from a small yellow star. They called their home Earth. They called themselves humans." A few delegates made soft sounds of amusement. Someone whispered, "The short ones." Vraxthul did not stop. They were new to the stars. Their ships were simple. Their weapons were basic. Their lives were short. You looked at them and decided they were not ready. You called them primitives. You said they were too angry, too quick to fight, too full of feelings. You said they would bring chaos if you let them join. He paused. The green light on his skin grew a little brighter. "So you turned your eyes away. When raiders attacked their first colonies, you did nothing. You said those worlds were too far. You said helping them would cost too much. You said it was better to keep the trade lanes safe than to save a few small planets full of noisy bipeds." A delegate from the insectoid Clithian species clicked his mandibles. "They survived, did they not? They rebuilt. They are still there, digging in the dirt of their frontier worlds." Vraxthul looked straight at the Clithian. "Yes, they survived. But survival is not the same as forgiveness." He took one slow step forward. His robes made a soft sound against the crystal floor. "Every time a human ship sent a call for help, you marked it as low priority. Every time a human world burned, you wrote it in your records as acceptable loss. Every time a human child died in the dark because no one came, you closed your reports and moved to the next item on your list." His voice grew lower, but the speakers made sure every being in the hall could hear. "Humans remember. Not with loud words, not with angry shouts. They remember in silence. They write down every name, every date, every place. They keep lists. They do math. They wait." A tall, blue-skinned delegate from the core worlds raised a hand. "Old One, why speak of this now? The humans have stayed in their corner for many cycles. They trade a little ore. They send a few ships. They cause no trouble. Why bring up old pain?" Vraxthul turned to face him. "Because pain that is ignored does not die. It grows roots. It waits in the dark. And one day it reaches up and takes what it is owed." A soft laugh came from the back rows. A group of young diplomats from newer member species shook their heads. "The elder speaks like a storyteller," one of them said quietly to his friend. "The humans are weak. Their population is small. Their technology is behind ours by at least 3 generations. They cannot even match our slowest cargo haulers. Vraxthul heard the whisper. His large eyes narrowed. You laugh because you see only what is in front of you, he said. You see short lives and small ships. You do not see what short lives can do when they burn bright and fast. You do not see what happens when a people learn that no one will save them, so they learn to save themselves. He raised both hands now. The green glow spread until it touched the nearest pillars. I have watched species rise and fall. I have seen empires that thought they were forever turn to dust. And I tell you this truth, never ignore the quiet ones. Never ignore the ones who stop asking for help. Because when they stop asking, it means they have already decided what to do next. The hall stayed silent for a long moment. Then Vraxthul spoke his final words. The debt is written in blood and silence. It carries interest. Humans do not forget debts. They measure them. They wait until the number is right. And when the time comes, they will collect. Not with rage, not with madness, with cold, careful balance. He lowered his hands. The glow on his body began to fade. You will remember my words, he said softly. Not today, not tomorrow, but one day, when the stars grow dark around you, and silent ships appear where none should be, you will remember, and you will wish you had listened to the last elder who tried to warn you. He turned and walked slowly toward the wide doors at the end of the hall. No one stopped him. No one spoke. Behind him, the delegates began to talk again. Some shook their heads. Some smiled. A few even joked about the human threat and laughed louder. Vraxthul stepped out into the night air of Valor Prime. The twin moons hung low and bright. He stopped under an arch of living crystal that sang softly in the wind. He looked up at the stars. Forgive them, he whispered to the dark. They do not know what they have made. Then he closed his eyes. The green light inside him grew weaker and weaker, until it was only a tiny spark. At last, that spark went out. His body turned to soft glowing dust that floated upward on the night breeze. The dust rose higher and higher, until it joined the starlight. In the morning, the Concord recorded a short note in their logs. Elder Vraxthul has completed his final cycle. Cause of passing, natural age decay. No further action required. They filed the note away, and returned to their trade deals, their border disputes, and their plans for the next 1,000 years. Far away, on a small blue world called Earth, people continued their quiet work. They built, they planned, they remembered. And the galaxy, so very large and so very proud, noticed nothing at all. After the elder Vraxthul turned to dust and floated away under the moons of Valor Prime, the Galactic Concord went back to its normal life. The delegates talked about new trade routes. They argued over mining rights on distant moons. They planned grand festivals to celebrate their power. No one spoke much about the old warning. It felt like a story from long ago, something to smile about and then forget. On Earth and the human colony worlds, things changed in a different way. There was no big announcement, no angry speeches on every screen, no fleets launched to attack anyone. Humanity simply stopped talking to the galaxy. One day the big relay stations that sent messages to the Concord went quiet. The next day the trade ships that carried ore and grain to alien ports turned back before they reached the border zones. Human ambassadors, who had waited years in the shining spires of the Concord worlds, packed their few belongings and left without a word. They did not slam doors. They did not shout. They just walked away and never came back. The Concord noticed slowly. At first they thought it was a technical problem. Then they sent polite messages asking why the humans had stopped trading. No answer came. Scouts flew close to human space. They saw the same thing everywhere. Closed gates, silent radios, defense drones that floated in perfect lines. but never fired unless a ship came too close. The drones always gave one warning in calm voices. "This is human space. Please turn back." Then they waited. Some in the Concorde laughed. "They are sulking like children," a diplomat from the tall, feathered Zenari said during a meeting. "Let them hide. Their worlds are poor, their people are few. In a few cycles they will beg to come back." Others were not so sure. A few older members remembered the elders' words. They spoke quietly in private rooms. What if the silence is not weakness? What if it is planning? But most pushed the thought away. The galaxy was too busy. New wars started on the far edges. New resources were found in nebula clouds. Humans seemed small and far away. So the Concorde turned its eyes elsewhere. Behind the locked borders, humans worked. They did not waste time on parades or loud songs. They built. On Mars, huge factories grew under red domes. Machines that never slept melted old ships and turned them into new parts. In the asteroid belts, mining rigs became shipyards. Long tubes of metal stretched out like fingers, each one holding the skeleton of something bigger and darker than anything humans had made before. Children born in those years grew up knowing only one rule: learn fast. Schools taught math before stories. Engineering came before art. History lessons were not about kings or heroes. They were about dates and names and places where help never came. Teachers showed old recordings of burning colonies. They showed lists of children who never grew up. The students did not cry. They wrote the numbers down. They learned to keep score. Engineers who once built cargo haulers now drew plans for weapons. The weapons did not look angry. They looked clean and simple. A railgun that fired metal slugs faster than light could see. A drone small enough to hide an event that could rewrite computer codes in seconds. A shield that bent space just enough to make a ship disappear from sensors. Every design had one thing in common. It did not waste energy. It did not make noise. It waited until the moment was perfect. In deep bunkers under the oceans of Europa, teams of scientists worked on something new. They called it the ledger. It was not a book. It was a system. Every ignored distress call from the past was entered. Every dead world had its file. Every lost life had its line. The ledger did not feel hate. It only counted. Year after year, cycle after cycle, the number grew. The humans watched it, like farmers watch a crop. When the number was right, they would harvest. Years passed. The galaxy heard rumors. Some traders who tried to sneak past the human border came back pale and shaking. They spoke of black ships that appeared without warning. The ships did not attack. They just watched. Then they vanished. The traders never went back. The Concorde sent a small fleet to look closer. 3 fast cruisers crossed into what used to be open space near Proxima Centauri. They found nothing at first. Then their screens filled with static. When the static cleared, the lead ship was gone. No explosion, no debris, just empty space where a battlecruiser had been. The other 2 ships turned and ran. They never explained what they saw. Their captains only said, "We are not welcome there anymore." The Concorde called it a malfunction. They sent repair teams. The repair teams never came back either. More time passed. Human children grew into adults. Those adults had children of their own. The new generation knew even less fear. They had never begged for help. They had never waited for someone else to save them. They only knew how to build and how to wait. In hidden shipyards beyond the Oort cloud, the first true fleet took shape. The ships were long and thin, painted black so they drank light instead of reflecting it. Their engines made almost no heat. Their weapons stayed cold until the second before they fired. Each ship carried a copy of the ledger. Every captain knew the balance. Every crew member knew why they were there. They did not train for glory. They trained for precision. They ran simulations 1,000 times. They learned exactly how long it took for a Quithian cruiser to turn. They learned the weak points in Zainari shields. They learned the sleep cycles of bridge crews on core world battleships. They did not plan to fight fair. They planned to win before the enemy knew the fight had started. On Earth, the old cities grew quiet. Many people moved underground or to the new orbital rings. The surface became parks and forests again. The air became clean. But under the ground and in the sky, the work never stopped. One night a young engineer stood on a high tower above New Shanghai. She looked at the stars. Her name was Mara Lin. She had grown up hearing the stories of the Elder. She had studied the ledger since she was 10. She spoke softly to the dark. "We are not angry anymore," she said. "We finished being angry a long time ago. Now we are just ready." Far away, in the bright halls of the Concorde, a new generation of delegates sat in the same crystal seats. They had never met Vraxthul. They had only read his name in old files. They talked about growth and power and the future. They did not know that the silence from human space was not surrender. It was preparation. And the number in the ledger kept growing, slow and steady, like a clock that never stops. One day soon, the clock would reach 0. And when it did, the galaxy would finally understand what the Elder had tried to tell them. But by then, it would be too late to listen. Decades passed, like quiet water flowing over smooth stones. The galactic Concorde grew richer and louder. New member species joined every few cycles. Grand stations floated in bright nebulae. Luxury worlds built towers of living crystal that touched the clouds. Trade ships moved in endless lines between stars. Everyone felt safe. The old warning from Vraxthul had become a joke told at dinner tables. "Remember the Elder who feared the dirt dwellers?" people would say, and then laugh. No one noticed the small, strange things at first. A mining outpost on the edge of the Perseus Arm stopped sending reports. The Concorde sent a scout ship. The scout found the outpost empty. Tools lay on the ground as if the workers had just stepped away. Lights still burned. Food sat half-eaten on tables. But no bodies, no blood, no sign of struggle. The scout crew searched every room. They found one thing, a small metal plate welded to the main console. It read, in perfect trade standard letters, "Payment 1, balance reduced." The scout captain sent the report back. The Concorde leaders read it and shrugged. Pirates, they said, or maybe a new disease. They sent a larger team to clean up. That team never returned either. Then came the missing battle group. 3 Clythian heavy cruisers patrolled the Orion Spur. They were strong ships, each one bigger than most human cities. Their captains were proud. They sent regular messages every cycle. One day, the messages stopped. The Concorde waited. Then they sent probes. The probes found drifting wreckage. Not much, just enough pieces to prove the ships had existed. No escape pods, no last transmissions, only silence. Among the pieces floated a single black shard, smooth and perfect. When the probes scanned it, the shard sent back one short message before it self-destructed in a tiny flash. Payment 2, interest applied. Panic started small. It grew in private rooms first. Diplomats whispered. Admirals checked their fleets. Scientists ran tests on the black shard fragments that survived. Nothing useful came back. The material did not match any known alloy. It absorbed scans like a sponge soaks water. A trade hub called Nexus 7 sat in a busy system. It was a wheel of metal and light, home to thousands of merchants from 50 species. One morning, the station's main computer locked everyone out. Screens across the hub showed the same image. an old recording of a human child crying in the ruins of a burning colony. The child looked straight at the camera. Then the screen changed to 4 simple words in white letters on black. Your ledger is due. The hub went dark for 3 hours. When power returned, every vault was empty. Every credit chip showed 0 balance. Every cargo hold sat open and bare. Not one alarm had sounded. Not one guard had seen anything. The merchants screamed at the Concorde for help. The Concorde promised to investigate. They never found who took the wealth. Luxury liners began to vanish. These were beautiful ships that carried the richest beings in the galaxy. They jumped between stars with perfect schedules. One by one, they disappeared mid-flight. Weeks later, the ships reappeared in empty space. The crews and passengers were alive. They looked healthy. They spoke in calm voices. But their stories were the same. They said silent black ships had surrounded them. No weapons fired. No boarding teams came. Instead, every screen on the liner showed human faces. Old faces. Young faces. Faces from the old ignored distress calls. The faces did not speak. They only looked. For hours they looked. Then the screens went black. When the liner came back online, it was alone again. Nothing was stolen, but every passenger felt something heavy inside them. Something that did not leave. The Concorde called emergency meetings. The Crystal Hall on Valor Prime filled once more. Delegates shouted. They pointed fingers. Some blamed rogue AI. Some blamed ancient traps left by dead civilizations. A few remembered the Elder. They spoke his name quietly. Others laughed them down. One old glowing fool, they said. Humans cannot do this. They are too weak. But the fear grew anyway. Then the 4 words arrived everywhere at the same moment. Every screen, every communicator, every ship console showed them. No source could be traced. No signal path could be followed. The words simply appeared. Your ledger is due. Stations froze. Fleets stopped moving. Planets waited in silence. For the first time in many cycles, the galaxy felt small. A brave admiral from the core worlds gathered a strike force. 12 of the strongest battleships. They flew straight toward human space. They broadcast messages of peace and strength. They said they meant no harm. They crossed the old border. Nothing happened at first. The stars looked the same. Then one ship after another began to fail. Lights dimmed. Engines coughed and died. Weapons would not charge. Navigation screens showed impossible paths. The admiral shouted orders. No one answered. The bridge crews stared at their hands, as if they no longer belonged to them. In the last moments, the admiral saw something on the main viewer. A single black ship hung in the distance. It did not move closer. It did not fire. It simply watched. Then the viewer filled with faces again. Thousands of faces, all human, all silent, all waiting. The fleet never came back. Words spread fast. Species that once ignored humans now spoke their name with care. Traders avoided human space like it was poison. Diplomats canceled old treaties. Some worlds even started teaching their young about the Elder's warning. But most still hoped it was a phase. Something that would pass. On Earth, in deep command centers, people watched the reports come in. They did not cheer. They did not smile. They checked numbers on screens. They updated files. They added new lines to the ledger. A woman named Mara Lynn stood in one of those centers. She was older now. Lines marked her face. Her eyes were calm. She looked at a wall covered in data streams. Ships lost. Stations emptied. Messages sent. Debts collected. She spoke to no one in particular. They still do not understand, she said. They think this is war. It is not war. It is accounting. Outside the command center, Earth turned slowly under clean skies. Children played in green fields. Factories hummed underground. Black ships waited in the dark between stars. The cracks had started, small at first, then wider. Soon they would spread to every corner of the galaxy. The Concorde tried to hold everything together. They made speeches. They told each other the humans would stop. They told themselves the worst was over. They were wrong. The worst had not even begun. Far out in the black, the silent fleet moved into position. Engines cold, weapons ready, crews patient. They waited for the next payment to come due. The galaxy waited. It held its breath. Nothing happened for many cycles after the 4 words appeared on every screen. Fleets stayed in their docks. Diplomats sent careful messages that received no reply. Traders kept far from human space. Everyone hoped the storm had passed. They told themselves the humans had made their point and would now go quiet again. They were wrong. It started at the edges, like a slow fire moving through dry grass. First came the pirate dens. For generations these hidden bases had grown rich by attacking weak ships. Many of those weak ships had once carried humans. The pirates laughed when they thought of the old distress calls. They kept trophies from human colonies on their walls. One night every pirate station in the outer veil went dark at the same time. No explosions, no battle cries. Black ships appeared without warning. They moved like shadows between the asteroids. Small drones slipped through shields, as if the shields were not there. Inside the stations, lights flickered once, then every computer locked. Doors sealed. Air vents closed. Pirates ran to their weapons, but the guns would not fire. Screens showed the same thing. Faces, human faces from old records, silent, watching. When the black ships left, the stations still floated, but the pirates were gone. No bodies, no escape pods, just empty halls and cold engines. On the main console of each station, a small plate had been added. It read, "Reclamation complete. Debt paid in full." The Concorde heard the news. They sent investigators. The investigators found nothing to explain it. They only found the plates. Next, the slave markets fell. These were ugly places on border worlds where living beings were bought and sold. Many humans had once stood on those blocks, with chains on their wrists. The market lords had grown fat on that trade. They kept records of every sale. They laughed at the idea of revenge. One cycle the markets opened as usual. Buyers arrived. Sellers shouted prices. Then the cages opened by themselves. Every lock clicked at once. The slaves walked free. Guards tried to stop them. Their weapons stopped working. Their armor suits locked in place. The black ships did not even land. They stayed high above the clouds. From there, they sent signals that rewrote every system. The market lords watched their wealth vanish from accounts. Their ships refused to start. Their guards turned and walked away without a word. By morning, the markets stood empty. The former slaves were gone, taken to safety by quiet transports that came and left without noise. On the central tower of each market, a message glowed in light. Lives returned, interest collected. The core worlds felt the first real fear then. These were profits being taken back. Orbital rings around rich planets began to disappear piece by piece. These rings were huge circles of metal and glass. They held cities, factories, and palaces for the elite. One ring around the Zenari homeworld lost an entire section overnight. The metal did not explode. It simply vanished. Sensors showed nothing. The next night, another section went. Then another. The ring lords screamed for their fleets. The fleets arrived too late. By the time they reached the ring, half of it was gone. The missing parts had been turned into something else, strange, dark structures that floated nearby. No one knew what they were for. A message appeared on every screen in the system. Materials repurposed, debt reduced, further payments required. The Concorde fleets finally moved. They gathered the largest force in memory. Hundreds of ships, thousands of fighters, admirals from every strong species stood on the bridges. They planned to find the human fleet and crush it. They broadcast their strength across the stars. They said this would end now. The humans answered with silence. When the Great Armada reached the edge of human space, the battle did not look like any battle before. There were no bright laser flashes, no crashing shields, no heroic speeches over open channels. It started with small things. One destroyer lost power. Its engine simply stopped. The crew tried everything. Nothing worked. Then the ship's own drones turned against it. They cut power lines. They opened airlocks. The crew had seconds to reach escape pods. Most did not make it. Another cruiser found its weapons locked. Every time they tried to fire, the guns pointed at their own hulls. The captain ordered retreat. Before the ship could turn, its navigation changed. It jumped, not to safety, but straight into a micro-singularity that appeared from nowhere. The ship folded into nothing. No light. Just gone. The human ships appeared then, not in a line, not in formation. They came from every direction at once. Black shapes against black space. They moved in patterns no one had seen before. They seemed to know every move the Concorde fleet would make. When a battleship tried to flank, a human ship was already there. When fighters swarmed, drones met them first, small, fast, perfect. The weapons the humans used were not loud. They were quiet and final. Some fired slugs that punched through armor like paper. Some sent pulses that rewrote computer cores in seconds. Some created tiny black holes that swallowed sections of ships whole. Every shot was calculated. Every hit was certain. The Concorde admirals shouted orders. The orders changed nothing. Their ships failed one by one. Engines died. Shields dropped. Communications filled with static. In the end, many captains simply stopped fighting. They watched their fleets die around them. They understood too late that this was not war. This was precision. This was the ledger at work. A single human ship moved to the center of the broken armada. It sent one message to every surviving vessel. Asset reclamation in progress. Stand down or be added to the balance. Most stood down. The survivors limped home. They carried stories that spread like poison. They spoke of ships that moved without heat, of weapons that knew their weak points before they fired, of faces on every screen that never blinked. The core worlds panicked. Planets raised shields. Stations went into lockdown. Leaders hid in bunkers. They begged for talks. They offered gifts. They promised anything. No answer came. In the quiet command centers of Earth, people watched the reports. Screens showed green lines moving across maps. Territory reclaimed, deaths reduced, numbers dropping slowly towards zero. Mara Lynn stood at the center console. Her hair had turned white. Her hands stayed steady. She looked at the final tallies. "Soon," she said softly. Outside, the Black Fleet waited. Not angry, not tired, just ready. The galaxy had laughed at the Elder once. Now it learned why silence had been the loudest answer. The reckoning was not finished, but the end drew close. The galaxy broke slowly, like glass under steady pressure. Piece by piece, world by world. The great fleets of the Concorde were gone. Their proud stations floated empty or in ruins. Their trade lanes stood silent. Fear moved through every species like cold wind. Leaders who once spoke with loud voices now spoke in whispers. They asked the same question again and again. How do we stop this? They could not. The black ships did not rush. They did not burn planets or shatter moons. They moved with calm steps. Each step took back something that had been taken long ago. A mining moon, rich with rare metals, once claimed by force from a human colony, found its surface cleared in one night. Machines stopped. Workers vanished. The metals were loaded onto silent transports and carried away. A message remained on the control tower. Resource returned. Debt reduced. Slave worlds that had held humans in chains for generations woke to find the chains gone. Guards stood frozen in locked armor. Doors opened wide. The former captives walked free onto waiting ships that rose without sound. The ships left no trace, only empty cages and a single line carved into stone. Lives restored, interest paid. Ancient Concordat worlds, the ones that had voted to ignore human pleas, saw their orbital palaces taken apart. Sections of shining metal floated away like leaves in autumn. The pieces were not destroyed. They were used. New dark structures grew in their place, strange rings and spires that drank light and gave nothing back. No one knew their purpose. Everyone feared it. The core worlds tried one last defense. They built a wall of ships around their brightest systems. Thousands of vessels, the strongest shields, the best weapons. They waited. The humans came anyway. Not in a wave, not with fire. They came in patterns too perfect to fight. Drones slipped through gaps no scanner could see. Codes changed without warning. Engines failed. Weapons turned inward. One by one, the defending ships went dark. Not destroyed, just stopped. Their crews sat helpless while black shapes moved past them like ghosts. In the end, the Great Wall became a graveyard of silent metal. The humans did not celebrate. They did not loot. They only collected. Every stopped ship received a small plate on its hull. Surrender accepted. Balance adjusted. When the last Concorde battleship drifted powerless, a single human vessel approached. It was long and thin. No guns showed on its surface. It sent one clear message to every remaining station and planet. We request a meeting. Earth. Neutral ground. Bring your leaders. Come unarmed. The time for words has arrived. The galaxy had no choice. Delegates arrived under heavy escort. Not human escort. Their own remaining ships carried them in fear. They landed on Earth, under clear blue skies. The landing field was simple grass. No weapons, no guards, only a low building of white stone. Inside the building a long table waited. One human sat at the head. Her name was Mara Lynn. Her hair was white. Her eyes were calm and old. She wore plain gray clothes. No rank, no medals. In front of her lay a single crystal tablet. It glowed softly. Lines of text moved across it. Names, dates, places, numbers. The ledger. The delegates entered slowly. Some looked angry. Some looked broken. A tall Zanari with damaged feathers spoke first. "You have destroyed us," he said. "Our fleets are gone. Our wealth is gone. What more do you want?" Mara Lynn looked at him without anger. "We have not destroyed you," she said. "We have taken back what was ours. Lives, resources, time, dignity. The rest we leave to you." A Clithian delegate clicked his mandibles. "This is revenge. You want blood. Revenge ends. It burns out. We do not want that. We want balance." She touched the crystal. The tablet projected images into the air. Old recordings. Burning colonies. Children crying in the dark. Ships leaving without helping. Voices begging over crackling radios. Voices that received no answer. The delegates looked away. Some closed their eyes. "We kept every record," Mara said quietly. "We did not add hate. We added facts. Numbers. For 300 cycles the debt grew. Now it stops." She slid the tablet forward. "Here is the new accord. Read it." The terms were clear and short. Humanity would join the galactic community, not as equals, not as juniors, as watchers, as arbiters. Their word would carry weight in every council. Their ships would guard the peace they helped create. Worlds that had gained from human suffering would pay, not in blood, in land, in knowledge, in resources. For 300 cycles, the payments would continue. After that, the debt would close. Military power would be limited. No fleet could grow without human approval. No weapon could be built in secret. Human eyes would watch. Every species would teach its children the story. The story of the elder who spoke. The story of the galaxy that laughed. The story of the silence that followed. The story of the day the ledger closed. The delegates read in silence. One by one they signed. No one argued. No one could. When the last mark was made, Mara Lynn stood. "We are finished here," she said. "Go home. Live, remember." The delegates left. They walked to their ships under the same blue sky. Earth looked peaceful. Children played far away. Birds flew. Nothing showed the power that waited in the dark beyond the stars. One old delegate stopped at the door. He was from a core world. His skin had faded with age. He looked at Mara Lynn. "Why now?" he asked. "After so long, why not sooner?" Mara looked out the window, at the green fields. "Because we needed time," she said. "Time to learn, time to build, time to count every debt correctly, time to make sure the answer would last." The old delegate nodded slowly. "You could have burned everything," he said. "You did not." "We are not them," Mara answered. "We never were." He left without another word. Years later the new accord held. Ships moved again. Trade returned, but the rules were different. No one forgot. Teachers told the story to wide-eyed young ones. Once the galaxy overlooked the small people, they said. Once an elder spoke, and the small people listened when no one else did. On Earth the crystal tablet rested in a quiet hall. New lines no longer appeared. The final entry glowed steady and clear. Balance achieved. One evening, she walked alone on a hill above the city. Stars filled the sky. She looked up for a long time. Somewhere out there, black ships still waited, not to fight, to watch, to remember. She smiled a small smile. Then she turned and walked home. The galaxy turned on without her noticing the change at first. But the change was real. Never again would anyone look at a quiet people and think them weak. Never again would a call for help go unanswered because it came from the wrong place. Humanity had spoken, and the stars had listened.